This is it. So over at least the last decade, contributions into workplace pensions have been falling. Budgets have been squeezed for businesses, recession, all these other things that have happened. Naturally, as the cost of everything goes up, the amount of money they have available, their spare cash has been squeezed, and pensions have kind of fallen into the background. People don't always, it's not, oh, I should do my pension today. It's that long-term planning. It's when you get to retirement. I remember myself, formerly I was actually a manager in a construction company. I remember when I started, my boss coming to me and saying, oh, is this about the pension? I was like, that's for old people. And I kind of put it to one side. Well, actually, at that point, 20-odd years old, it would have been, or should have been, actually, let's start thinking about it now. So it's far easier to build up that sum that I need by the time I get to retirement. So why has this come about is complacency, I think, in most cases. Businesses, do they perceive offering a pension as the best employee benefit spend for them? Probably not, because the employees don't perceive it as something really important to them. Certainly the younger guys, if they're wanting new, young, fresh staff into the business, would they rather offer them private medical insurance and bike to work and all this kind of thing? Yeah, of course they would, because that's all these nice to haves that they can just lure them in with. Pension, as I say, that's for old people. That's not been a priority. So, exactly. And that's the case for a lot of employees. So the focus on pensions has kind of dwindled. And as a business, because you weren't legally obliged to offer one.
So stakeholder pension was not legal, obviously.
Yeah, stakeholder, if you had at least 5 employees, you needed to have a pension available. And I used to work for one of the big insurance companies, and what we had is employers would phone us up and say, we'd like to use you. And we'd say, fantastic, here's a certificate, keep it on file. And that was just saying that Aviva, that's okay, that's who I used to work for. Aviva was your nominated pension provider of choice, and that would just sit on file. They didn't need to communicate that to employees, they didn't need to tell their employees it even existed, unless really pushed, and they didn't need to make minimum contributions. So again, there was no emphasis on pensions whatsoever. What we've found, though, of course, over the last few years is there's been a lot of change with pensions. This year alone, April, we had the change this year in that we had the new flexibilities introduced. I don't know if that's something that everybody's familiar with, but over the last few years, interest rates have been falling. People are all living longer, and that means that what has traditionally been used to provide an income from pensions has actually become pretty poor value. So an annuity, which is basically where you're giving up your lump sum, that lump sum I'm talking about that you get to the end of retirement, you say, well, that's what, if you haven't got final salary, of course, you would buy an income for the rest of your life. But the amount of income you could buy would be dictated by interest rates, which are, at the moment, very, very poor, and how long that money's got to last. So if somebody's got an income that's got to last for X amount of years, they'll divvy that up by however many years that is, and obviously pay appropriately. If you're now living so much more, some people, historically, of course, retired at 60, to be honest, certainly with final salary schemes, when the actuaries were doing their calculations, expecting most of the people will probably be dead by 70, 75. These days, if you're somebody retiring at age 65 today, statistically, you've got a life expectancy around about age 85, 86 on average. So that's another 10 years in addition to what they'd expected to pay these final salary schemes out for it, etc. So that's why a lot of them have closed down to new entrants and certainly new contributions, unless it's NHS, etc. Because, of course, it's such a cost to bear. But that's for them. For us as individuals without final salary schemes, we've got to make that pot of money, whatever that pot of money is, go that much further. So if we're expecting to take £100,000 in it to last 10 years, we could go, oh, that's £10,000 a year. If it's now got to last 20 years, it's only £5,000 a year. So that lump sum needs to be obviously a lot bigger, and maybe that's new information to everybody here. It is to a lot of employees. They just don't realise how much money they've got to set aside. And businesses are having this burden put on them, basically, because the government's decided, and I tend to agree with them, that actually it's probably the most efficient way to get people engaged with pensions. Rather than sending out around the country and saying, oh, you should think about pensions, and nobody will. This is an obligation of every business now to actually set one up, to have something available, communicate the importance of it, and if applicable, if you're an eligible employee, for them to be put into it.
So stakeholder gone?
Yes. As of 2012, it doesn't exist anymore.
Groups like the SDS Forum are good. They do two things. They enable people with similar life experiences to come together and share their experience and realise that they're not alone and learn good ways to do things and better ways to do things. They're also good for advocating for people in that position. They can create a common voice that says, this is our experience as a carer, this is our experience as a parent, this is what we need, this is